What motivates you to continue playing, even after like doing this for so long? Like, what do you wake up in the morning and are like, I'm gonna play today?
Well, this is what I do. I don't do anything else. You know, I wasn't a rocket scientist. I barely made it out of Berkeley College of Music. I was telling the guys that my father was going to have me assassinated if I didn't graduate. So I graduated. Serious, you know. And I come from a musical family. I was just telling these guys that this horn is the horn of my Uncle Rocco. And he was like the godfather of the family. He got all the horns, and when he passed, they gave me the saxophone. So I grew up in an all saxophone family. Uncle Joe played drums, cousin Bob, you know, so it was all around me. So I just, as I was growing up, I just figured, oh, everyone does this. You know, this isn't everyone's family. Come to find it wasn't, you know. So I had this great fortune, as Joe Lovano did, in growing up in a musical family and having music all around me. It was just so, it was like something you do. You know, it wasn't like you could do it. They were like, you're going to do it. So, you know, it's great. It keeps my mind off of other things, and it's the only thing that I was successful at. Developing the triadic chromatic approach was a complete, you know, spoof for me, just looking at triads and realizing that they were all created equal. Think about that. Let me grab this horn. Okay.
So just to fill in a couple things for you. So George grew up in Boston, went to Berkeley, was there at the same time as Joe Lovano and Schofield and a lot of the people that we know now. Now, you've been teaching at Berkeley, you said 50 years now? You're teaching there, so if you could think of a saxophonist in your head, that person probably studied with George at some point at Berkeley, because he also taught at the New School, he taught at NYU, he taught at Mannes, he's taught everywhere. So now the triadic approach he's talking about is his personal take on harmony. Just like we keep saying over and over, you have to come up with your approach to things, right? This is George's approach, which I have stolen.
You what?
I've stolen it. But we can get into some of that stuff too. But that's an excellent question for you. Excellent. Any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
You know, you mentioned you went to Berkeley with Lovano and did some recordings with Lovano, so I just wondered if you could talk about what that was like.
It was deep. Well, I mean, when I went to Berkeley, Joe came about a year later. He was one of the first cats that made me realize how much I needed to get my shit together. Because, you know, when you stand next to that guy, and he befriended me, like we became really good friends because, you know, we just had this solid vibe happening. And, you know, I wasn't as strong as these cats like Kenny Warner and Billy Drews and all that, so they liked me, so they would let me hang with them, you know, because I just, you know, I didn't really open my mouth too much and just checked out what they were doing. And then as the years went on, Lovano and I just kept in touch, and you know, I really learned a lot about the love of the saxophone that he and his father had. I don't know if you know his father, Big T Lovano, if anyone's from Cleveland, but Big T, Tony Lovano, he was really influential on Joe, like my Uncle Rocco was with myself. So we had this kind of, you know, stereotype family thing growing up with the saxophone as a mainstay. So, you know, I try to tell the kids and the students to try to hang out with people that are much better than you are, because you're going to learn a lot. You know, it's a little, you know, challenging, but, you know, if you can hang with listening to someone that can play their butt off, that's how you're going to learn. You want to hang with everyone, but people that you really feel challenge you, that's what you want to be around. And that's what Joe did for me.
Could you talk some more about some people who challenged you like that or influenced?
Joe Lovano,
Yeah.
Jerry Bergonzi,
Yeah.
Michael Brecker, Dave Liebman, who else? Let me think. You know, John Coltrane. Just to name a few.
How about some rhythm section players that you played with?
Well, I was just talking this while, but Jeff Dane Watts. We're actually playing at the Lincoln Center because they're honoring people from different towns, so they actually selected me. And so we're going to Dizzy's on December 9th to do this Boston hometown boy thing. So I got Tane, Leo Genovese, and Peter Slavo. And, you know, cats like that, these guys that are coming from, you know, like Elvin Jones and Rashid Ali playing all of that at once. When you get on the bandstand, you play with people like that, they'll throw you, you know, and that's what he did the first few times. He really, like, kicked my butt and, like, made me understand, you know, the meaning of swinging on 1 and 3, which is something I believe in, because when you get with these cats that do not give you 1, 2, 3, 4, you're on your own. So it was eye-opening to play with something like that. Then one day I auditioned for Elvin Jones, and during the audition, like, we started playing, so it came to my solo, and his time was so laid back, he made me sound like I was rushing, and I don't rush. And he was looking at me laughing with those teeth. What the hell is going on? Because he was making me rush until he hit this rim shot, and all the vertebrae in my back went, and then we were off to the races. So different people, Jack DeJohnette, if you look at the Coltrane live in Japan with Brecker, Liebman, myself, Josh Ribman, and we do impressions, and they let me actually play duo with Jack for a little spot. And it was, you know, I mean, that if you see that was a turning point for me. Because the only reason I got on the gig was because I knew the Japanese promoter. And he's like, oh, George, you're going to come to Japan? Oh, cool. You're going to play a Coltrane tribute. Oh, great. Oh, who's on the gig? Oh, Jack DeJohnette, Dave Holland, Dave Liebman, Michael Brecker. It's just to name a few. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
So, seriously, I'm just telling you at this point, on the flight over, I said to myself, if I can make it through this gig, then I'm cool. And I went over there, and these guys were so receptive, and Michael Brecker was so nice to me. He came to the back of the bus where I always sit, came down, started talking to me, made me feel comfortable. We got on the bandstand, and I was like, see you later. And check that out if you get a chance. I was only about, what was this? 46, 47.
Was that Tenor Odyssey?
Yeah, it's called Coltrane Live in Japan. Yeah, I think they called it.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago. I still had dark hair. Anyway, so any other questions? No, I like this.
I'm curious about your neck strap, because I've always found it difficult to find a good, comfortable neck strap, because one that lets you have good posture while giving you that freedom to move. So I just want to ask you about your neck strap of choice today.
Do you use one of these? Or?
Yeah, I like the harness better than the neck strap just because of the posture. I'm a massage therapist, so that's what I like. It's very important to have good body mechanics, and it seems like you're very comfortable standing there with good posture with your board. So I just was wondering what type of neck strap you wear.
This is I don't even know what it is. It was my cousin Richie's, and when he died, they gave me this. And no, seriously, and the strap, and so I just took everything and I put it on. I said, yeah, this is cool. But for me, I'm just telling you because you're a therapist, I studied with Zen masters since I was 28. And, you know, they taught us about correct stance and posture and meditation and the whole thing. So the only reason I switched to this is because the neck strap thing was starting to give me a little thing here. So this neck strap is probably 30 years old. They don't make them like that anymore, and especially for women, because My wife plays saxophone too, and she, I don't know what she uses, but it's something similar to this. But no one's getting this because this fits perfect. You know, for me, you know.
You mentioned you've been studying with Zen masters since you were 28. How did that affect your playing and how you approach music?
Completely. Because his concept was cut thinking. So when I started studying with this guy, you know, it was like a Tai Chi moving meditation, getting up at 5 in the morning, and I still do that now. The one thing that he was able to make absent from my mind was a thinking process. So when it came time to play, as soon as, you know, I hit the horn, I don't think, I hear. You know, and a lot of people, a lot of my students, they think too much, and I try to dissolve them from thinking. You don't need to think when you're playing. You just listen or hear what's going out of the horn. Because the moment you start thinking about what you're playing, then you're just going to play a bunch of stuff, you know. But, I mean, listen to the changes. Like, we're going to play a tune now. I don't know which tune we're going to play. But you know, we'll play a tune with changes, but you'll hear the changes because I'm not thinking about them, I'm hearing them. So it's kind of an abstract way of how you look at things, to be there but not be there, not be there but be there. You know, it's like a mixed.
Yeah, I'm trying to formulate this question because like I've done it before a little bit where it's like you kind of like, it's kind of like, I don't know how to say it, like energy standpoint, at least with like improvising, I've like done that a little bit, where I like hear it, I'll try to like formulate something. I don't know what I'm asking you if you can just kind of
Spit it out, come on.
I don't know.
So what are you not thinking about?
It's like, I don't know, at least when I like first started improvising, I used to think a lot and that kind of like pulled me back. Sorry.
All right, so if you're going to think about what you're playing. If you're playing a tune, you want to think about the format of how the tune rolls. The best thing to do is when you get thinking too much, play long tunes, which is what I want to do because this is the first moment I'm picking up the horns. Can I just warm up in front of you?
Okay.
So the idea about not thinking when you play long tones, it's not necessary to be thinking, you just listen to the sound. And let me also skip and say, when you go out to play, the first thing people are going to recognize is your sound. That's the first thing that people are going to go for, especially if you play for people that understand what music is about. Because everyone can play content, but there's not that many people that play with sound. Like, for instance, you listen to Coltrane, that's Coltrane. You listen to Sonny, that's Sonny. You listen to Joe Henderson, you know, you can tell because these people have an already established sound. So that's what you should work on the most, is your sound. And long tones are the best. It's like meditation, you know. I never practice loud. I always practice. I developed this thing called the non-sound that Greg was playing. And then as I get closer, I try to introduce the sound, but still not bringing the sound out to the max. You hear how it wants to come in. So this way, when you go to play a note, or a selection of notes, everything, it's like a big crescendo, and it's all in time. That make sense?
Yeah.
It's the first thing people address, people that know what they're listening to, they listen to your sound. Because once you get in there and you start playing, you lose them. And even if you're playing straight ahead. You know what I mean, really straight ahead, you can lose people. So it's important that they can register based off your sound. Anything else before we try a tune?
When looking at a new tune that you might not have heard before, how would you approach it in terms of solo?
A new tune?
Yeah, I mean, I know that probably doesn't happen. I'm sure you know a lot of tunes. But when you were presented with one you're not familiar with, what would be your approach?
I use the triadic chromatic approach. This is something I developed to get me through changes, you know what I mean? There's a lot of things, like sometimes, you know, people write these scores like, oh, will you play come and play with my group, and I get like 14 pages, which I don't do anymore. I just, you know, paper and I never really agreed with each other. So now it's just I play free, or the cats know that, you know, if I want to play, I want to do some train tunes, or, you know, things that are negotiable, because it takes too much. And I appreciate if you write a lot, do it. But I want to improvise, and I don't want to spend time having my eyeballs go cuckoo trying to figure out your music. You know, in the positive sense. Someone else have a question?
Yeah, could you, like, briefly break down your approach?
How long do we have? Let me play a tune and then I'll jump right on it, okay? So you know what I'll do? We're gonna play Have You Met Miss Jones? And then I'll play it a little bit inside, and then I'll start to trip, okay? And you know, it's really involving triads, inverted with chromosome, a little chromatic, a little bit of this or that, a little olive oil and garlic, and a little tomato sauce, and then you're ready to go. One, two, So then the first bar, as soon as you know you have players that can hang, you move right in on it. You can't waste any time, I'm not getting any younger. Any questions? You want to jump a little on the triadic thing?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just going to give you a light summation, then I want to have Dave to come up and play with me with this. So, again, I'm not a rocket scientist, but one day when I was on the blackboard at school, I put major triad, minor triad, augmented triad, and diminished triad, 1, 2, 3, 4. And when I looked at them, this was in front of the class, so I was figuring this out on the run, I said, wait a minute. These 4 triads, they're all created equal. Because in my mind, and if you're classical, you can disagree with me because the kids at New England Conservatory were Kuhl when I told them this. I felt like a major triad was a minor triad inverted, a minor triad was a major triad inverted, augmented comes from major third, and demented comes from minor third. Right? You dig it? So I was like, wait a minute. So these 4 triads are just made up of 2 intervals. So why can't you just play anything you want? Right? And it didn't matter. So I tested it on the classical people because they were the most, oh, it goes this way and this is how it goes and it has to go, and they didn't budge at all. In fact, I had them write out some solos. And when they took it to the teachers loved the classical people, because it was like daring to step over the line. So I'm just trying to give you 25 years, an hour or so of how to practice this. I took major triads and practiced them with half step in between and not repeating the inversion. So if you play 1, 3, 5, you'll go up 1 half, down 1 half. Record this if you want. Okay? You play 1, 3, 5, up 1 half, down 1 half, then play the next triad, but not root position. Okay, so if you play 1, 3, 5, up or down, the next triad has to be what, 3, 5, 1 or 5, 1, 3. Okay, so it sounds like this. It's really beautiful music. And that's just major triad. So then when I'll go through it quickly. When you play minor, what happens is when you flat the third, it makes the minority sound even more minor. So when you're playing in a modal situation, like if you do impressions or whatever, you can kind of suppress the direction of the minority and shoot it down, you know what I mean? So. Where do you think you've heard that before if you listen to Coltrane? John Coltrane.
Oh, yeah.
Like I listened so much to him that I couldn't figure out what he was playing in this minor mode because McCoy was over here throwing a 1-5. But once I stopped listening to McCoy, I was finding out these different things, like how you could play flat 9 on minor and sit on that thing, like. With the minorism of C minor. That makes does that make sense? So something I can leave with you is if you from the flat 3 on a C minor, if you run a whole tone scale, all right, C minor, you go flat 3, 4, 5, natural 6, natural 7, flat 9. By the time you get to the flat 9, you've established a whole tone. I sound like a teacher, don't I? I'm on sabbatical, so I shouldn't be doing this. Anyway, if you run a whole tone scale from the flat 3, by the time you hit the flat 9, it becomes part of the scale. Okay? So does that make sense? Anyone need more information on that? It's really, it's minor, but then you have the natural 6, so it's really almost Dorian now. And so now I'm leading you into augmented triads. So when you deal with the augmented triads, you have all what major thirds versus diminished where you have minor thirds. And I figured out how you can play giant steps with all augmented triads. You want to hear it?
Yes. Yes.
So, no, I was looking at giant steps one day, and these are some of the secrets that Coltrane gave away, but not too many people picked up on us. Like listening to him over and over and over, and embedding that sound in your ears. You know, everyone's like, oh, that's all you listen to is Coltrane, 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 Coltrane. Yeah, what's the problem? That's all you listen to. I call up Lovano, who do I hear in the back? Coltrane. I call up Liebman, who do I hear in the back? Coltrane. I don't hear Kenny G, that's one thing for sure. I love it. So check this out, all right? So this is giant steps. Not too fast. I'll play the head. 1, 2, So when I looked at giant steps, I said, wait a minute, in concert it's an augmented triad. So B, E flat, G. So if it's an augmented triad, why can't you just play all augmented triads? Because it didn't matter whether you were on the consonant or off the consonant, because it's all you know, the same sound. You know, it's symmetrical. So whether you go, it took me right to the chord of the tune, and the less I thought about it, the more it happened. It was crazy, you know. So it's something you try, and you can also hear me doing this kind of bounce where I bounce major thirds. That's what gives it a little more rigmarole, you know, rhythmically, so it doesn't sound like I'm playing an exercise. Because it will sound that way because these augmented triads are like that, they're symmetrical, but when you put a little bounce in that thing, a little rock and roll. Okay, see how it sits? It's something you got to figure out. You need to go out dancing more. You go out dancing, go out dancing. Don't just practice all day, that's boring. You go out dancing, you know? I can tell when I listen to people play, who dances and who doesn't dance. No, seriously, because you can hear it in the playing, you know? But, come on.
Yeah!
Cool. So, this is Rhode Island and Massachusetts. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm proud of it. In Boston, we always say, how you doing? And then the Rhode Island guys go, no, how you doing? How you doing? Who do you want to play, bro?
Yeah, yes.
One, two,
Yeah.
Any questions, thoughts, feelings?
That was awesome.
Oh, you scared me, man.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
This is like, but they're gonna like bottle his energy and like run the rest of the world on it.
I was trying to hold back. It was so
That's
cool.
fine. No, you can let yourself go. Just stay in control when you do it, you know what I mean?
I got you.
It's better to have an excess of energy. It's better to have too much energy, seriously, rather than having to try and develop it. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that too, but an excess of energy, and I'm married to one. You know, she's an Argentinian, like, fireball. And she's like, she never sleeps, she's always up doing something. Go to sleep, honey, come on, it's 1 in the morning. No, we're just waking up in Argentina right now, at 1 in the morning. So it's good to have energy. And it's also good to be able to sleep while they're awake. So, you know, it's better to be overflowing with energy rather than having to develop.
That's me.
Anything else, Marshall?
Obviously, you know Dave and you guys have played together before, but when you're playing with someone new, how do you put that faith that they're gonna catch exactly what you want them to do, even if it's in their own way? Like the way you guys were playing the melody in the beginning, you just kind of backed off and Dave took right over. How do you put that faith into someone right away and just assume they're gonna catch it?
The key word that no one understands is called listen. Don't put that on in your face and go nuts, which I do all the time. But, you know, as soon as someone else, plus, you know, we've played so many years together, and, you know, we just know what to do. You really, when you're playing with other people, see, I have this beautiful ability to have a group together for 50 years where it's just bass, drums, and myself. So I can do whatever I want, there's no piano player. It's wonderful. I mean, I love it. I love the piano. How many people play piano? I love the piano. I love it. It's the piano player that kills me. Only serious. No, but you know what I'm saying? It's like listening. So I'm trying to check out what these guys are doing. There's such a great level of improvisation. I'm actually playing less, believe it or not. And then when Dave comes up, it's just like we just make it happen rather than come up and say, okay, I'm the leader and I'm going to overplay, and then these guys are going to hate me and never call me again. You know what I mean? So the ability to listen to what's happening around you, even when you're home with your family, like listen to what's happening rather than blah, 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 blah. Because I grew up in a blah, blah, blah Italian family, and you couldn't get a word in edgewise, so I had to learn to be blah, blah. It was pretty serious. Any thoughts about blah, blah? I'll go back.
Forgive me if this was already gone over, I just walked in, I came from the test, but I was looking at your traumatic approach to the thing. I only heard the last part where you were trading back and forth. but I could hear a lot of chromatic movements inside of your soloing, and I just wanted to see if you could like talk about that.
Absolutely. So, again, this is not coming from a rocket scientist. I just look at things and I realize that chromatic approach exists in between a major third. I mean, if you want to record this or write it down, please do. So what I call chromatic approach are all the notes in between the major thirds. So you have half step, whole step, minor third, and major third. So when you're improvising, piano players or guitar players or anyone, restrict yourself to a major third. Let's say if you pick C to E, so you shouldn't go lower than the C or higher than the E. So that means you only have 4 options: half step, whole step, minor third, major third. Okay? So what you're trying to do now is try not to repeat 2 half steps, 2 whole steps, or 2 minor thirds. Okay? It sounds like, yeah, okay, it's not really that difficult, but then when you go in to do it, it's restrictive because you can't go lower than the root or higher than the major third, and you're trying to be random. So you do that for a while and that'll, start to drive you crazy. So you pick these various major thirds, like maybe C to E, then go B flat to D. Same thing, not lower than the B flat, not higher than the D, not repeating 2 half steps, 2 whole steps, or 2 minor thirds. You follow me? Okay? And so you do that in all these various places on your instrument. Then the idea at the end is to be able to move up and down your instrument without getting larger than a major third. You want to hear that again? Yeah. To move up and down your instrument without getting larger than a major third. And that's when you're hearing what I'm doing, the chromatic approach. Now I'm not really restricting, but I'm just showing you how to practice. And I didn't cop this from training. I copped this from Miles. 4 and more. He's like, so he does this whole chromatic thing. I thought he's playing some kind of sophisticated chromatic rah, rah, rah. And after, about 6 months, I realized that he was just chromaticizing. So what I got out of that was learning how to be non-repetitive. And that's the story. Does that make sense, my man? That's the story about chromaticism, is trying to stay within a small cell and not repeating yourself. Because if I play without repetition, then I'll play a few notes that repeat and you can hear the difference. Hear that? Okay, you can hear that. It's very distinct. But when I'm coming down the pipe, and you could put any chord over that. I stole that from the classical guys. You know why? Because one day, again, I'm sitting at the piano and I played C and C sharp, and I held the pedal down, and it released the other 10 notes of the chromatic scale. And that's when I heard all this just chromatic resolution inside of a half step. Does that make sense? I mean, so I just kind of permeated it and, tried to practice it without repeating. So if can you drone like a D, C, and G? Just go like together. Right. The drone is always there. No matter what I'm playing, it never leaves, because I'm playing all in and around is fundamental. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Now, can I tell you that the book of 126 pages of this will be coming out by the end of the year, and really, I want you to buy it. Just, you'll like it, okay? It's 126 pages of this rah, 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 broken down by the missus, who's much more methodical about things than I am. And it goes, you know, triad by triad, how to do it, the chromatic approach, how to get in and out of it, and there's a little cassette thing there where you hit on that and it plays examples for you, you know. Things that I could never do because I never figured out how to turn the computer on. Bah! I gave it to her, she took care of it. So,
What's the book called?
yeah, it's called the Triadic Chromatic Approach.
Hey, how'd you think of that?
Maestro, are you gonna ask me a question?
He was gonna ask the same thing, sorry.
Same thing, yeah. It's on Apple Books now, but we're transitioning to our own website with a little shopping cart, and you know, you'll be able to buy it, and then there's another book with all my tunes in it. And the tunes really give you an idea of what this is about, because I do some contrafacts against standard tunes you might know, like I just gave Greg, All the Things You Are, and I call it Some Things You'd Like to Be. It's just this chromatic coolness, and the less I think about the chords, the more it happens. It's just, you know, something I fell on. Again, you don't need to be an Einstein to figure things out. Seriously, like, don't think like, well, I can't do this because, you know, this is way over my head. But I just never looked at it like that. I just realized that 2 and 2 equals 2. End of story. Any thoughts about that? Not the 2 and 2, but
Magic.
Earlier you mentioned like the blah 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 and understanding your family. I kind of had an experience like that because I studied abroad in France this June, and like trying to understand French people when they actually speak is like really difficult, even though like I'm pretty familiar with the language. And I feel like there's a lot of like intersectionality between like understanding speech and also just listening.
believe me, I sympathize with you because I just got back from 2 weeks in China. And even like Mrs. speaks Argentinian Spanish, and it's about 10,000 times faster than any of the other Spanish that you hear. And I just don't get it. So you just hang in there and listen. Do you speak French?
Yeah, I can speak it, but hearing it is a whole nother thing.
When you go, have you been to Paris?
I was only in Marseille.
Marseille, yeah, you gotta go to Paris, that's the real accent. I think that. Anything else?
Where did you go in China?
All right, good. Ladies first, and then I promise I'll get you.
Where did you go in China?
I flew into Beijing, and then we did a 3-hour bullet train ride to Weifeng, which I don't know. You know, when I go do these gigs, I don't know where I am, but I trust people. Sometimes I trust them a little bit too much, but these people were my Danish friends. We play the Copenhagen Jazz Festival every year, and they brought me over. And it was sponsored by this company that makes all the parts for Apple. So once I heard that, I said, we're cool. So they have a campsite, and can I show you something?
Yes, you may.
Please.
We shall allow this.
This is, let me just see what my phone is. I want to show you this 10-year-old student that can play the work song. Oh, and the kid is killed him. So, no, this will be worth it. Let me just find it. All right, just check this out. You'll be able to hear this because the sound is good. This guy's probably 10 years old. Believe me, I wasn't playing like that when I was 10.
Me neither.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty unbelievable. Questions again? Roland?
I just wanted to ask, like, what were some of the first albums that really inspired you as a young musician? Or,
My Uncle Frank brought me 3 records. Sonny Meets Hawk. Listen to these. It was a different name. It's Sonny Rollins and Coleman Hawkins. And then, what's another one? Oh my God. The clarinet player, I can't think of his name. Woody Herman. And then he gave me the Stan Getz Reflections. I don't know if you have that record. But that record hit me the hardest. And I was only about this age, about 10, listening to this record over and over, just playing along with Stan Getz. And, you know, not realizing that back then I was getting closer to his sound until I heard Coltrane. But those were the 3 records. You know, listen to it, whatever turns your ear on, listen to it. I mean, all this jazz stuff I do is really a cover because I really come from the backbeat of James Brown. Everything I do comes from James Brown. I grew up in Roxbury and these brothers brought me into the family. And by the time we were 16, we were an overnight sensation playing James Brown funk. And I didn't realize it. After I left the band and went to Berkeley, I took the downbeat of James Brown, you know, and I took it into jazz without realizing it, swinging on 1 and 3 instead of 2 and 4. And it stayed with me all my life. And sometimes people say to me, did you play funk when you were younger? Yeah, I play James Brown.
Can you break down what you mean by swinging on 1 and 3 instead of 2 and 4?
You grab the saxophone.
Okay, so now when let's say you've been studying bebop, the 2/5s, the progressions and everything, you know, to get everything down. Now it's time to get a little more experimental. The only way you're going to do that is by playing vertical, okay? So vertical improvisation requires downbeat swing. Because when you start playing these ideas that go this way instead of that way, all of these lines, they're all dependent on your time. Okay, it's all dependent on your time. Even with the chromatic approach, I'm still using that downbeat swing feel, you know? This way, when the rhythm section hears that, if you, like tonight we have a great rhythm section, but sometimes I go someplace and the rhythm section is not as happening as this, so I feed them this downbeat swing so they have something to grab onto, because if your time as a saxophone player, if your time is not solid, you're going to be in trouble. It's just something. If you have a good rhythm section, they'll make you even sound better. But your whole life is based off of 2 things, your time and your sound. This is what people recognize, you know. They hear you first, and then they decide if they like what you're playing or not. And if they're still in the audience after you finish the gig, then you're doing okay. No? Follow me? They haven't left. Any other questions? And then we'll play another tune. Question?
Yeah, this is totally off the topic, but maybe there's a tune that has become underappreciated a tune you like or a set of changes that people are starting to forget, but that they should not forget, and that a tune that people should know about, like a classic tune or a set of changes?
Like, I like Body and Soul, I like Misty, you know, those kind of tunes. Like, I don't mess around with those tunes, because they're almost sacred. Like, I work when I want to talk about you, you know, Coltrane's, you know, big song, and a lot of the triadic approach that I figured out comes from, I don't know if you know the song, you know. He gets to the end of the tune, then he does a cadenza. All of the triadic comes from that cadenza, because I listened to that extensively, just trying to figure out, yeah, exactly how he's getting in and out of that, you know, without, quote, meandering. You know, he's playing a lot of triad. All of that augmented. I just listened to that over and over and over to try to decipher not what he was playing, but how he was playing. That makes sense? I mean, you want to play Body and Soul? Let's play Body and Soul. Two, two. questions? Come on.
Go ahead.
Dave.
Would you say it was like easy to kind of bridge the gap between like your inspiration from like James Brown and like you didn't see like any kind of contrast and like just trying to like understand the jazz tradition while learning it? Because sometimes like I try to find the gap between what I listen to daily and then how I can apply it to like what I'm saying.
They're both the same. One goes between Bernard Purdy, and the other goes there's no difference between the two. See, I never correlated it as being two different things. I just, you know, with my no mind technique, I just go into things, you know, and that stuck. It was so strong for me growing up with these cats and like instilling that backbeat and the downbeat and, you know, Bernard Purdy and all these cats. When I was like 16, that's what we were listening to because, you know, it was so funky, man. You know, did you see the movie, what was it called, Get On Up? The James Brown movie? How they had to like recreate that, and they did such a great job. I mean, it's hard recreating James Brown, you know. You can't really recreate that guy, but there was a lot of good moments in that that really brought me back to when I was young. But I don't see like, there's no difference between that or playing jazz, or playing rock, or playing funk, or playing free, because when I play, everything I play, I try to incorporate a beat. So that even if I'm playing all of these passages or the free thing, you can still feel a meter. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, but you can still feel the flow. And that's where, sometimes when people play free, that's where they miss the point. You know, they just go crazy, which is cool. I'm totally into that, but for me, there needs to be some kind of a feel down there. You know, there needs to be some kind of a feel, whether you're playing free or playing James Brown or playing tunes. You know what I'm saying? So that when the people hear it, they start tapping their foot. And that's really important. You know, you just don't, you don't want to go to school and come out and go down and play all the stuff you learned at school. You know, you want to go to school and then throw all that away. In fact, I used to yell out with the fringe. The kids would come from Berkeley, all my students, I'd be yelling out, stay in school, but don't go to school. Think about it. Stay in school and don't go to school. So, you know, like, go to school, learn everything, but don't take that to the bandstand. Because it's really important that you release that and, you know, play who you really are. Anything else?
George, we never talked about this, but in the Hindemith Flute Sonata, there's triachromaticism. I'll show it to you later. Inverted chords and chromaticism. So I'm not surprised that some of the classical musicians, if they've played those pieces, they would know, they would hear it, you know?
Well, I have to be bad and say that when I was at Berkeley, there was this composer, Slonimsky,
Yeah.
and everyone was buying this book. Now, you know, when I was 19, I wasn't like, oh, Slonimsky, so I never understood it. So we were practicing it, and he would run these arpeggios. Whatever the arpeggio was, the next arpeggio, he'd run the same arpeggio, but then vary that arpeggio by one note differentiation, and the whole thing would change. So I didn't realize it until one day when I was flying to a gig, and I opened up the preface. I bought the book later in life, and in the preface he's talking about major triads inverted with half step between, and I was like, oops. But I swear to God, I didn't steal it from Slonimsky. Really, I mean, I'm not that advanced, but he was like, so I'm thinking maybe from this book, if you get this, what's his first name? Was it Igor?
Nicholas.
Nicholas Slonimsky. Everyone was reading out of this, so I was like, oh, I gotta get this book because everyone's practicing out of this book. But it was too far over my head playing these piano arpeggiations, you know, until later I come to find, I think I stole it from him. But don't tell me. Anything else? All right, so we'll play one more tune, is that cool?
Yes.
But the last thing I want to say verbally before we play is when you go out and play, have a good time. Please, will you do that for me?
Yeah.
Don't worry about what, you know, Joanne's going to think about my playing, or Frank is going to, you know, when they're vibing you and looking at you like doing this shit. Sorry, you know, they're doing like this. They go out and have a good time, enjoy yourself. This is what I do. I play the saxophone. I hope you like it, and if you don't like it, great, then you leave me alone. Right? So don't worry about what people, if I had to worry about what people thought of what I played, I'd be working at Starbucks. I always wanted a job as a barista. No, I did, because at New England Conservatory, I would walk in and I'd walk up to the guy and say, how you doing? What's going on? You want a triple? What do you want? A double, quadruple? So they're screaming. I said, I want this job. No, shit. So I said, do I have an application? And he looked at me and he said, no. I said, come on, I want to be a barista. I'm Italian, I know how to make good coffee. No. He wouldn't give it to me. I said, why? Because you teach at New England Conservatory. So, anyway, that's the story. Want to play some blues? Sure. Thanks for having me. You guys are great. It's probably the most questions I've heard from an ensemble in a long time. You know,
Sorry, I've been trying to figure
That's
out.
all right.
I've been trying to figure out how to phrase this whole time. Just it's more of a because I'm a music education major, not just performance. And I was wondering, as somebody who's been educating for so long, what is the most important thing that you want your students to take away from you? Like I know you said earlier, like stop thinking, stuff like that. But what is the most important thing that you hope that they'll carry on to their students if they ever have that?
Just to be yourself. Just to be yourself. You can't, like, I can't be her, I can't be Greg, Greg can't be me, he can't be this cat. You know, it's like, be yourself. Because if you get up there and try to be someone else, people are going to identify. You can only be yourself. And then I have this line that I made up, or I developed. A good teacher is a teacher who teaches the student how to teach him or herself. And that's something I live by because I have too many sons and daughters as it is. Melissa Eldon, Walter Smith, my boss. You know, they're all my sons. In fact, we're playing at Smoke and for like 5 nights, and they want to call it the Sons and Daughters of Garzone. So, you know, just be yourself and don't worry about what people are saying, whatever. And you're going to fall on your own thing if you just try to develop who you are. And every person here has a triadic chromatic approach inside of them. It's your own really, it's your own concept. But people sometimes are too afraid to, you know, to release it because they're afraid of what their friends will think. I don't need any more friends. I don't want any more friends. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, do your thing, because in the end, if you stick to what you believe in, well, it's Melissa Eldana. Whoa, that's deep. If you stick to who you are, this is what the people are going to pick up on. Like, who this person is, who that he's not trying to sound like Coltrane. No one's going to ever sound like Coltrane. Even when I thought I was getting close, and then I put on the record, I realized I wasn't even on the same block, street, planet, you know, satellite, whatever. It's just, you put it on, it's like, no way. So you try to emulate people that you like, Miles Davis or James Brown or whoever. You try to get the likeness of what they're doing, then put your own spin off on it. Okay?
George Garzone.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, great questions, awesome. So we'll see you on Tuesday.
We'll be better now.
Just be yourself. Awesome, thank you all.
Thank you,
Help
Dave.
me put the chairs away, okay?
We got you, Dave.
Oh, by the way, thank you to Greg Tompkins and Greg Poling for allowing George to come down here and set the scene. Thank you, guys.